Transmission begins from Moneypenny.
Yeah, so it hasn't really been too long since we talked. In fact, this is kind of an odd one. We're talking about Spectre again. This is our Spectre Revisited podcast, which we always do. You know, usually when the movie is out in the theater, we do our initial thoughts and we'll do our review, and then like some time will go by, and then the Blu-ray comes out, and then we have a chance to see it again a couple times, and then kind of collect our thoughts. This was sort of a weird one because I never had any time apart from it, and I remember, I think we talked about this before, but apparently it was the same timetable as Skyfall, but I thought this was like crazy fast.
It does. It
like it was
fast.
3 months later, 3 or 4 months later.
But yeah, it was pretty much on the same timetable as Skyfall, which is, I know, it doesn't seem like it, but it's true.
What did you think of the gun barrel in the beginning?
Okay, now I've heard, I wanted to, this is pretty funny you mention this because I went online, somebody brought up a good point about it, and I didn't notice it until I watched it. He's actually carrying the Walter PPK. You see it in his right hand as he's walking.
Right.
And I was like, no, that's not the way it should be, because, and the only thing is like, this guy's like, he's about to assassinate him, and then Bond gets a jump on him, and he shoots the guy before he can shoot him. That's the whole point of the gun barrel.
Right.
And if I got a thing in this guy, I'd be like, holy shit, that guy's got a gun in his hand. I'm going to take this guy out. Well, I got to take him out now,
Right.
Because if you go into the other gun barrels, you don't see the gun in the hand until all of a sudden it magically appears, and then all of a sudden, boom, and then, you're dead. If you watch,
it's almost like, right.
If you watch the Spectre one, he's kind of walking down the street with the gun, no big deal.
Right, exactly. Just kind of got this swagger
I'm
with the
being
gun.
real nitpicky on it. I shouldn't, because they put the gun barrel. They kind of put the gun barrel at the beginning, but then they didn't do it quite right.
Well, don't apologize, because I'm about to rip it even worse.
I always thought if they had to put that dead or alive, why can't they just go to what they usually do, where they go into the thing instead of going to black, just do like they do the iris, where they go into the actual picture and then iris out, and then just have somebody holding up a sign saying the dead or alive. Why can't you do it that way?
You're right. Yeah.
At the Festival of the Dead, why not?
Yeah. No, I agree, and I'll do you one better. I mean, truthfully, the more I saw that gun barrel, the more I was kind of like, wait a second, what's wrong with this? Like, it didn't, something wasn't right. The more I really think about that, I really get this feeling from the filmmakers that they really didn't want to do it.
Yes.
And frankly, made it very clear that they didn't want to do it.
No, I do. I agree with that. They're like, all right, there's been bitching and moaning over 3 films, and probably, all right, we're gonna do it. But you know what? It's going to be compromised.
Yes, yeah, it's right, and it's not going to be the gun barrel you really want. Because again,
right.
The odd thing again, how many films now have we had this CGI gun barrel where it's a computer animated, an animated gun barrel where it moves with the light and everything? I mean, when you first saw that GoldenEye, it was really cool. Like that was the first time you saw a moving gun barrel where it reflected the light, and then by the end it was the exact image that you remember. I mean, that was spectacular. Fast forward how many decades now, and we've had nothing but CGI gun barrels, even these other Craig ones that are kind of the gun barrel but not quite. But now we're going to go back to this static, shoddily drawn gun barrel that was kind of the gun barrel but not quite. And it was kind of like this sort of dingy gray, as if like they told somebody in the art department, look, just give me like a charcoal mock-up of the gun barrel quick, because we're throwing the shit in there. And they do it. And so this static gun barrel moves, and here's Craig swinging the gun in his hand, and just turns around and fires, and then and I'm like, wait, what? And then of course, like you said, then they fade to black. They don't do the traditional, the dot drops and opens up. No, it fades to black and holds black for like a good 2 or 3 seconds before that dead is alive thing comes up, almost as if it's like, look, there's your gun barrel. Now get it out of your head. Like, now we're going to go to silence, blackness and silence, and now we're going to open up our movie. You know what I mean? So there really is kind of it's almost like they really didn't want to do it, and they're gonna like look, here's your gun barrel, go away, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a fair observation to say that this really stinks of we didn't want to put this gun barrel in there. We're not giving you the real gun barrel. And I mean, again, like I said, I mean, you go back to literally 1995. This is how many 21 years ago. Wow. To GoldenEye, and that gun barrel was spectacular. And you can't if you do like a side by side today, you'd be like, wow, this really is kind of dingy and lazy.
You had no authority. None. Mexico City. What were you doing there?
I was taking some overdue holiday.
All right, so let's jump into this. Here's my first question to you, and then I know there's some things we're going to touch on, but has it aged like a fine wine, or has it started to sour?
I've seen it. Let me see it. Let me just very quickly go through. I did see it just like you. I saw it twice in the theater, and then the next time I saw it was on Vudu when we first got that InstaWatch. I don't really have too much of a problem with it. I think it really falls apart in that last act. That's where it gets me. Yeah. And I think the whole thing of driving up to Blofeld's lair and that whole business. That is where the movie kind of hops a track for me, because it doesn't make sense that he would do that. I don't know. It just seems stupid just to drive up to the villain's lair. It's like, hey, I'm here. for a guy that's been trying to kill him throughout most of the movie,
Right. You're making his job very simple. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it just go there. You've got no plan, no backup army. Yeah,
I mean, it's convenient for the screenwriters, but it doesn't make logical sense when you think about it just a little bit,
Yeah, right. Okay. Like literally, what was his plan? Did he have something lined up? Was the cavalry going to show up? I mean, the answer is no. So I don't. Yeah, no, I agree with that. For me, I think it's definitely slipped on my on my rankings. I meant to say this. So now that you've gotten that gift basket from Barbara Broccoli, now you can take the gloves off, huh? right. Seriously. It's definitely slipped. Well, the thing is, too, it's funny. When you start ranking the Bond films, when you really start to look at where it falls on your overall, it's not even so much that this movie's bad, but it's almost like, but was it better than some of these others? And I really just have to say no. There's so many just better films than this. And I had it square in the middle. And when I say rankings, I literally keep like a list of which ones sort of fall where. And then I look at some of the ones that were underneath it, literally Goldfinger, GoldenEye, The Spy Who Loved Me, and I'm like, you know what? I can't say this is better than those. So it had to kind of go down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because again, at the end of the day, it was like, well, what did this film really give me that I haven't seen before? That was really so special, and did it work? And what was because my feeling, I remember the first time I watched it, I really sat there saying, like, how do I like this? How do I feel about this film? Somewhere in the middle, I started to say, oh, all right, I'm on board. I like it. But I couldn't really feel great about it, because I wasn't really, it just something about it was kind of off. But then, as you said, later, then it really just sort of something just fell off. And, then it just really kind of went sour. So, and the times I've seen it since, I just sort of, I can't stop seeing some of the glaring inconsistency and the lazy storytelling. And again, story wise, I say what is happening? What is the plot of this film? To this, I still look back on it and I say, what is the villain's plot? I don't get it. I don't understand what the villain's plot is. Then when you get into the personal aspect of it, and I hope to God the next one is a little more impersonal than this one. The whole thing with Blofeld being his brother, I thought, it was horrible.
That sucks. Yeah.
Not only was it, just on a surface level, it was just terrible. But then when you really start to say, so he decided to become a master criminal just because he doesn't like James Bond, and luckily James Bond became a super spy. So now they're, and then you had that guy C, and every time they cut back to to see and Ray Fiennes' character. I mean, it really just. I mean, this stuff was so boring.
That's
so
that's a
boring. I
subplot
mean, it was
that
really
just don't
terrible.
care for. That's the one big part of it I don't care for. I mean, the whole I'm your brother thing is awkward.
Oh yeah,
But
right.
it's sort of interesting. The whole C thing just does. It's just business to give M and Moneypenny to do, really, and Q.
Yeah, just to have them on screen, literally. Because
And-
I
and I have
there's
to say
nothing
this.
interesting about it.
It didn't occur to me until after I saw Spectre and after we had our first podcast. I said, you know what? There's another spy film that came out this year that pretty much had the same premise, and that is the Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And I said, you know, they both have the premise is like there's a super secret, evil organization that nobody really believes exists but does, okay? That's out to go, to do this kind of domination thing, But Rogue Nation handles it so much better. And Rogue Nation also, I think Rogue Nation, from my taste, even though the Bond action scenes are big and huge, I kind of like the action scenes better. I think they're better directed in Rogue Nation. And I like the way that Ethan Hunt and his team were sort of integrated into the story. It seemed more natural flowing,
Right.
So I got to say, when it comes, I mean, I think it's clear that we're huge James Bond fans. But the best kind of action blockbuster spy movie of 2015, it's Rogue Nation.
Yeah, no, I've heard the comparison, and I think it's absolutely valid. And if Spectre was just a little later, you'd almost say it was a ripoff. But then again, the funny part is Spectre and the Bond franchise in general did this first years ago. And it's almost like now they're kind of coming back saying, wait a second, we did this first. We should be doing this, and, we're going to do this. Because the other comparison that I had was the Captain America Winter Soldier, when now Hydra had infiltrated everything.
Yes,
And I'd read, too, that, it's funny. I'd read that the Bond franchise was really, they were starting to be influenced by what Marvel was doing in creating this whole universe, this whole Marvel comic universe. And because of that, that's why you ended up with Spectre, that ended up being tried to sort of tie all the last films together. And again, I think that was so terrible because in trying to look like you're tying the last 4 films together, it shines a spotlight on the fact that you are not tying these together, that they had nothing to do with each other. But now you're going to sort of pretend that they did. I don't really understand why they're sort of going after that whole universe aspect. And I mean, because you've already got a franchise. It's one film franchise. You can't break out and do different films. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's like they're trying to tie their own films together to make it seem like it was all a big plan all along, and it really wasn't. It's like, well, what is the point of that?
Wasn't it supposed to be a Jinx film? And they did Catwoman instead?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, right. Seriously.
What?
Talk about dodging that bullet.
Your mama.
Yeah. I actually, if I may, I found an interesting article. Some of you might not know, but when there was that infamous Sony hack, part of that hack was these sort of emails going back and forth about Spectre and some of the problems. But I just want to quote a little bit. It says, according to email leaked in the Sony hack, the new James Bond movie Spectre, which began filming this week, so this is during the production, will likely clock in among the most expensive movies ever made. And that's another thing. This budget of this thing is like
wow, yeah,
300 millions.
Oh my God! Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, wow, 300 million, and I remember thinking like, boy, this is really going to be spectacular. And it frankly was not. Like, I mean, there was nothing really in there that I thought, And then I heard another statistic. Here's what I find funny. The last Star Wars film, The Force Awakens, the budget was 200 million. Now that's a Star Wars movie where you have to invent everything from scratch. Everything you're seeing doesn't exist.
Yes.
So again, where does that 300 million actually go? I don't know. I don't understand that at all.
Don't get me wrong. There's some spectacular looking stuff in here. That plane chase sequence and the Spectre base. I mean, it all looks rather spectacular. Does it 300 million spectacular? I don't know.
Right? I mean,
but anyway, on with this thing. It says the studio notes, if you read the script, are accurate. The problem seems to start when Bond meets the villain, a mysterious man named Heinrich Stockman, who also uses the alias of Franz Oberhauser, played by Christoph Waltz. In an irritating expositionary monologue, Stockman confesses over dinner that he is Bond's older foster brother and also the head of the terrorist organization named Spectre. Bond is tortured and then, for unclear reasons, manages to bluff Stockman into rushing back to London, where it has become clear that C has been working for Stockman the entire time. Bond, accompanied by Q, who is in the next cell the whole time, follows Stockman to London, where he kills him. Stockman is not particularly compelling villain. His motivations are never made particularly clear. His connection with Bond completely forced. The plot, when Stockman arrives, becomes difficult to follow and honestly kind of boring. Stockman, we ought to note, also has an attractive woman servant who has the hots for Swan. So they were going to have like this lesbian kind of thing, but that never happened. That
like
was,
a Rosa Klebb kind of reference, I guess.
Kind of, sort of. As a result, the film has a boring and uneventful third act that, according to some executives, barely even makes sense. But those working on the film are still searching for answers, so they were kind of still didn't know where they were going.
Yeah.
And this is a memo of script notes from August 25th says about the third act, and here's the memo. There needs to be some kind of twist rather than a series of watery chases with guns. This is Blofeld, after all. What does he have up his sleeve? They were scrambling with this thing. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they're writing this stuff. I mean, they're cutting characters out. I mean, it's a mess. I mean, when you go into a movie and you don't have your third act, you're basically screwed.
I mean, it's funny, too, because, I mean, they pretty much nailed it, and you wonder, like, well, what did they do after these notes? Because they didn't seem to fix any of those problems.
I know.
Yeah, interestingly, I also read, I forget if I mentioned this last time, but there was I had read part of the script after I saw the film, and the Oberhauser Blofeld thing was handled much differently, and I think better, because basically, and again, I think this whole storyline is just awful to begin with, but if you're going to do it, the way they had set it up was that Oberhauser saying, you know, my father adopted you, you were not my real brother, you were adopted, and Bond kind of turns around and says, yeah, well, you were adopted too. In fact, your real name is Ernst Stavro Blofeld, which I think would have been a much better reveal than just him making up his own name, saying this was my mother's side. I remember going into the film, again, it was funny. See, it's funny too, because I remember I had first heard about the Sony hack too, and I was trying to avoid spoilers, but way early on you heard brother and Blofeld. You know, I remember thinking that was such a bad cliche. I thought they were going to lead us to think that's what was going to happen and then sort of fake us out. But they didn't. We just walked right into it. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm your brother and I'm Blofeld.
I think Bond is a tricky thing to write for because some of the regular screenplay writing rules don't quite apply. In most screenplays, you want to keep things, even if it's a big scope, you want to keep things also kind of intimate and personal to create conflict and so forth, to up the stakes, to make it more interesting dramatically. But in Bond's world, it's kind of weird. It's kind of not like that. It's kind of this different thing. I mean, if you go through the Connery years and even the Moore years, there wasn't very personal. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yet it worked, you know? And it's just kind of like Bond was like, not a blank slate, but, you know, he was, you know, he had his way with the ladies and he was always had the right line at the right moment, you know, and, you know, to deflate these, you know, these uber villains and so forth. And that was the fun of it. You kind of put yourself in his shoes and, like, you know, you always had the right line. And you always had the right martini, and you're in the right tuxedo, you know, and all that stuff. And
right.
You sort of projected yourself onto Bond, you know, and it was cool,
right?
You know, and this now they're making it kind of like a whiny, interpersonal, you know, whatever.
Someone has some daddy issues.
Nothing could be my father from the truth.
Who? You said my father. No, I didn't. How?
Did not.
Shabba.
See, I think if back in the old days, if you wanted to make it more personal, you would just have, like, you know, the bad guy would kill off one of Bond's allies,
right?
Up the stakes a little bit.
There's one book that
talks
talks about the sacrificial lambs, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, but you didn't have to. I mean, the idea that sure, you could have movies, you know, back in the old days where, you know, they're fighting and then at the end somebody says he was my brother all along. What? You know, but it's almost like at this point it's so cliche that I mean it just blows my mind that they actually went there with that.
For me, this is a dad issue.
Dad issue. Dad. Dad be dad. Oh. Daddy didn't love me.
Look around you, James. Everything you believed in, a ruin.
Why did you come? I came here to kill you.
thought you came here to die.
Well, it's all a matter of perspective.
Wow, I mean, it's so hard. You're so hard pressed to say, well, what does the bad guys? What are they doing that is so bad that I should even care? I mean, the whole plot is that they're trying to gather information and intel from different countries.
It's like he's battling Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of ridiculous, and who is like, so they can gather intel from different countries, and so they'll know everything about everything, but they already do know everything about everything.
Pretty much,
Moneypenny
what they
gets
do.
a brand new phone that Bond gives her, and apparently they have access to a recording of her speaking on the phone. So what's left that you guys don't know? Apparently, if anybody scratches their rear end, you know about it.
To be honest, I feel like with a little effort, I could probably get up to their level, in a few months if I really just hit the computer and just like really got into it,
Right?
I don't know. I think they really ran into third act problems, and I get that. Sometimes it's just tough. Sometimes you hit a wall, and there's not much you can do about it. I think they tried to make it more personal because of Skyfall, because that got a little personal. They're edging more towards that.
For better or worse, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just too coincidental with Blofeld. I kind of like it where they're not related. I think that's a mistake. I think we've talked about that in the last podcast. I think we made that loud and clear that we do not like them related at all. Even though they're kind of stepbrother, which is not blood relation, it's still awkward and too coincidental.
Right. It was a very, very, very far-fetched idea that had no payoff. Again, if there was some sort of a payoff at the end, I mean, seriously, these guys are supposed to be like battling, like okay, so there's some sort of like competition and like this battle of wits, and they're gonna. Where was it? There was nothing. It's like, oh, I'm your brother. Wah, the end. Now we'll just fast forward to the Penelope pit stop. Your girlfriend is tied up someplace, and now you're going to have to. I mean, how many times? That's Batman and Robin, for God's sakes. I mean, we've seen that before. You'll have to choose between rescuing your partner and rescuing the girl, or you'll have to escape with her. I mean, what was that again? Like, you can rescue her and die, or make it out and be miserable. I mean, it didn't make any. In fact, frankly, looking back, I'm like, what was this again? He gave him 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes. You have to choose to rescue her and not make it out, or to just get out on your own without her and be sad and miserable that you didn't rescue her. And then at the end, but again, like a lot of bad movies where there's no real consequence, Bond runs around the building for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then he hears her scream and he grabs her and they make it out. So it's like, all right, so there was never any real tension to begin with,
it's all they just they hit a wall creatively. There's no two ways around it. I mean, and it goes to show you could throw as much money as you want at it. It's not going to fix the problem unless you get it down. You have to sit down and just figure it out creatively,
right,
via the screenplay. That's all you can do.
It's funny. All that excitement in Mexico City rang a distant bell. And now, suddenly, this evening, it makes perfect sense. Welcome, James. It's been a long time. And finally, here we are. What took you so long?
I mean, that's the thing about this. This movie's got some great scenes. Like, I love the when he infiltrates the that meeting, the Spectre meeting, in Rome. I mean, that is a really good scene. I mean, there's some really good stuff in here. It's a shame that it kind of gets muffled at the end.
It does. I'll say this too. I also did. I guess I noticed it, but I wasn't really conscious of it the first few times I saw it. But I really do like the tributes to the Spectre iconography, I guess I'll call it. The locations. They do the boardroom, which is right out of Thunderball. They have the mountaintop clinic, right out of Honor Majesty's, obviously.
Right. Uh-huh.
And then they end up in the crater, which is obviously a nod to the volcano from You Only Live Twice. I mean, I thought that was kind of clever. And if you're going to do a movie titled Spectre, then then have those nods in there. And I thought that was pretty good.
You know what? They dropped the ball on the character Blofeld. I think, and I
Yes.
touched on this, I think, on our last podcast, but I think it bears repeating very quickly, is I think they're also kind of, after the whole Austin Powers and the Dr. Evil thing, they're really shy about going full-on Blofeld. They don't, because I guess they don't want to be laughed off the screen or whatever. But I think, what the hell? Just go for it, man. Just do it. Reclaim it. Bring it back. No,
I agree.
Don't get me
too.
wrong, I love Dr. Evil, and those movies are funny as hell, and I laugh my ass off watching Austin Powers. But yeah, it's also but I can separate the two. I can also have this too.
See, but it's funny to me that what's ironic about that is that they, as much as they shied away from doing a full blown Blofeld, the stuff that they did go with was so cheesy and corny that it was like, well, this is what you're gonna pick to
I know.
The only thing they kept the cat and the scar, frankly, and that was sort of it. And you're gonna
Even
add
the cat
idea
is
that
kind
they're
of a throwaway thing. It's like something they could have easily cut that if they wanted to, or if they got
sure.
scared.
Yeah, it was
You can
barely
see
even
the way
there.
that was shot. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you're going to add the element of the brother thing, which again they mocked in Austin Powers. I mean, if they goof on it in Austin Powers, that tells you just stop, don't do it.
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And they've done it like how many years ago? Austin Powers was goofing on the cliche that they're really brothers all along, and you're actually going to do it here? I mean, come on. What were they thinking?
That is true.
I really do think this is one of like the mysteries of modern cinema to me. Like how this actually got past everyone and became an actual story element. That Bond and Blofeld are really brothers. I think it's like one of the worst decisions ever in a Bond film. I really wish they had never done that. It was just such a silly. I don't know, and even the shot early on with when he finds the old picture, and of course the one face is burned off, and you're kind of like, it was like, again, it's just so convenient and cliche. It was like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be somebody's going to come back from Bond's past or whatever. I don't know. Then when he actually did it, you're like, oh no. And I'll tell you something else too. And I know we're going to disagree on this. I know we did disagree on this, but I really still say I think Christoph Waltz was so miscast as Blofeld.
No, you said that. The only thing is, I think the disagreement we had was, you're miscasting. I'm saying I think he has the acting chops to pull it off. I just don't think the material was there, and I still believe that. I really do.
I think it was both. I think yes, the material was not there. They gave this poor guy 3 scenes. And I almost wondered, again, that was such a mistake too. I wondered if that was kind of like, do you think they were trying to follow like the Jaws kind of school of thought where you don't show too much and just little by little? But at the end of the day, he had the one boardroom scene, the one scene really when they meet at the crater, which again was poorly done, frankly, and then the finale at the end.
That boardroom scene is excellent, and his introduction, I think it's great. I think that works. I think let's give him that scene. I think.
Yeah, that works. That actually worked great until he looked up and went cuckoo, cuckoo, and I remember.
I didn't like that.
I was like,
well, that's going back to the whole brother thing.
I know, but but do you literally have to make the guy go cuckoo, cuckoo? I kept thinking of like Jack Black in Shallow Hal.
Okay, cuckoo, cuckoo.
I was thinking more like Inglourious Basterds. That's a bingo.
right, yeah. So I did think I agree with you. I think the boardroom scene was good and it was very effective. And I liked how he was almost kind of Dr. No-ish when he sits down and everybody the hush over the room and he tilts his head a little bit. Somebody walks over. I
kind of like the way he also was like he acted so polite and nice too. He's like, oh please don't let me interrup. Continue.
Yeah,
things like that.
Right.
That was cool stuff.
Even his voice,
where everybody realizes,
well,
they're all like kind of like I said the wrong thing and I'm dead.
Right. Like you're like are these chairs electrified? Yeah. No. That was very good, but it was almost like it was almost too good because then fast forward to the end when he completely. Again, a guy who's got this whole organization to do his bidding. He doesn't have to lift a finger. He's got all these people who are going to take. The power he wields. Then at the end, just him by himself, hanging out in the MI6 building with you know what I mean? with the pilot in the helicopter waiting for him. It's like, boy, did that just kind of just defy everything you set up in the beginning.
That's another thing. Another problem I have with the film. If you're going to have a helicopter scene in the opening action, then you can't really do a helicopter at the end. It's too repetitive. My personal opinion.
True, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do that, that at the opening, then you should come up with something else. Speedboat, anything, but you don't do the same thing twice.
Right, right. I mean, well, the whole ending, everything about the ending was terrible. I mean, there was nothing in that ending that you were like, wow, that's kind of new or that's different. I mean, it was like, frankly, it was awful. Just the idea again. The idea he follows the boat he follows the helicopter with the boat. We said last time, like all the helicopter has to do is go up or left or right, and they've lost the boat.
It's sort of like that thing in Prometheus when Charlize Theron's running from that thing at the end. It's just a straight line.
Exactly right.
And you're like, why don't you just move, a couple places to the right or the left? You'll be cool.
Right. Seriously. I do think, like I said, they don't give him anything to do, and he just seemed to me kind of miscast. Because again, he like even the scene like when he's supposed to be interrogating Bond and he's telling him. I mean, and that scene was weak too, but he's got no socks on, and he's just he's telling her. And
I always hated that in real life. I hate that. I hate when people show up or I hate when like somebody shows up and like when a guy wears like sandals. I hate that shit. But anyway,
you're right. Seriously. I mean, he seemed like just sort of a dandy, like a little, kind of. Yeah. He was a genteel man, and we talked last time about how that suited him perfectly in Inglourious Bastards because he was kind of nice to your face, but like you said last time, capable of horrible acts. But the difference is though, in a film like a Tarantino, you're gonna see these horrible acts. You know that at any moment in a Tarantino movie, he can cut somebody's ear off at any minute, or somebody can get like just seriously maimed at any second. In a Bond movie, I don't think it works because you're not going to see anything that horrendous. So it almost seemed like you knew this guy wasn't going to get his hands dirty. You knew he wasn't really going to do anything, and he didn't. So that potential menace is not there. So frankly, I feel like I'll tell you. You want to know who I think should have been Blofeld?
Yeah, I'd love to know. I
think Dave Bautista should have been Blofeld. I think Dave Bautista as Blofeld would have been spectacular.
That's interesting. You made me think. I mean, surprisingly, when I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, he ended up being my favorite character, which I never thought going in that would happen.
Right?
I think I'd walk out and say, well, it'd be Chris Pratt's character or the raccoon, whatever it was.
Right,
but I walked out and I was like, I love that character.
Yeah.
Dave Bautista,
right. Interestingly, I mean, I think he actually does. He should be like a guy who doesn't have to say much. When he does, it's like, wow, he's a big, and even in the books, in the books, he was a big guy. He looked like a guy who could have been a wrestler or whatever. I mean, frankly, he fits that part in this to me. So, I mean, and if you did have, frankly, if usually in the Bond movies, you get these kind of guys who are like, rich, older, whatever, so that, like in a movie like Tomorrow Never Dies, like when him and what's his face is fighting at the end, Jonathan Pryce has to get the drop on him to sort of, and even in Quantum of Solace, same idea. The bad guy gets the drop on him, so Bond's already kind of hurt. So now when they fight, it kind of makes a little bit of sense, even though it really doesn't. If you had a climax where Dave Bautista was Blofeld and the two of them actually go fisticuffs at the end, and then they got like the fight like we got on the train, which frankly I think was probably the best part of the film, then you really got like a climax here. You got a big fight where Bond really has his hands full, and he's having the fight and doing the fight of his life. But really, we had, as far as I'm concerned, that climax happened on the train already. It's not going to happen. You know what?
I was thinking. I thought about. I don't know if I talked about this in the last podcast, but and if I did, I'm just going to say it very quickly. I always felt that I thought that they should do it if they're going to have him go off with Swan at the end. Instead of having that train fight there, they should have that train fight at the end. At least you would have ended on a good action sequence.
Yes.
You would have felt a little better about the film. Because it would have been like do more traditional, kind of go back to the, where they always had the little tag scene in some of the older Bond films. You could go and like they're on the train and it's all romantic and stuff, and all of a sudden Batista shows up, and there's like this action scene where they they go at it, and then you end with them, with the same. You could do almost the same scene. and then just end with them, making love in the compartment, and then that's the end. And then you can even rip off North by Northwest and show that the train going through a tunnel. I mean, whatever.
There you go. Right.
Honestly, if I had no script and I had no time, that's what I would have done. I would have went in, I would have edited the film, I would have taken that train sequence, and I would have moved it to the end of the film. That would have been. That's what I would have done. And you probably could have done it fairly easily, with just a little bit of dialogue, maybe a little reshoot here and there just to fill in the gaps. But I really think that should be the end of the movie. But that's me. Because that ending with Blofeld's not big enough. It's not good enough.
Yeah, it's right. Exactly, it's not. And I thought that was the part of the film that they actually got right, was the idea that, again, because they set up they introduce Batista's character. They show him doing something horrible to this guy. They show what a tough guy he is, how he snapped that guy's neck like it was nothing. And then when you got the fight later, it was the payoff for what you knew was coming, and it was really good, really well done fight. Probably one of the best fights I've seen in a movie in a good while. That they got right. So frankly, I wish they elevated that a little more and just downplayed or gotten rid of this the Blofeld.
You would have walked out of the movie with a good scene, at least. And although it's pretty much, it would have been the same movie, it's like you're ending on a better note. And
exactly,
you would have walked out with a little more satisfied.
If they did the car chase better, again, now I'm kind of going back to like where you first meet him, and then the car chase happened. Like the car chase was really weak. I thought that was an oddly boring car chase where nothing happens.
It is. Frankly, it's a little bit of. It kind of almost goes back to like some of the sort of the push button stuff.
Right.
Sometimes Roger Moore would get into that area a little bit. Sometimes his chasings were really good, but sometimes he got into a lot of button pushing as well.
Exactly.
Which is what this kind of is.
Yeah. See, I remember I kind of felt like it was a boring. Most of it was boring, and then the part where like he's on the phone with Moneypenny and saying, did you ever look up that thing I asked you to look up, as if like this is a good time to have a conversation about it, which it is because the chase is boring. And then he pulls up alongside him, and he looks over to the left, and he sees him, as if this is supposed to be kind of funny, and he says, "Hold that thought," and he goes back to the car chase, and it's like, but all right, but he just caught him. Like, what was he trying to do? Why didn't he run him off the road? Why didn't he do something?
Right.
So basically, what they could have done is maybe had that end with a fist fight with him and Bond. Because frankly, again, I'm not even sure why Bond's even running from him necessarily, much less ditches the car in the river and does that thing. Because again, the guy caught him and he didn't seem to even mind. I mean, he could have just kept on driving, but just get on the highway and just drive out of town. I don't know, but had that ended with like a fist fight, then maybe Bond one-upped him and he got whatever. Then he shows up again at the end. Maybe he's now got a scar or whatever, and now he comes back and he's looking for some revenge,
Shoot. So is this your least favorite Craig, or is Quantum still hold that honor?
Actually, I'll tell you something. Here's what's funny to me. If you took Casino Royale, Casino Royale to me is like just a brilliant, perfect Bond film. If you took that and like maybe had like two offspring, right? Kind of like Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger and twins, where the embryo splits, but different things go into different places.
Yeah.
If you split that in two, and you took all the dark, grungy, grittiness, ugliness that we sort of introduced in Casino, that would be Quantum of Solace. That was just the right. the full blown Jason Bourne fights, ugliness. You can't do anything without getting your face scratched up, sort of thing. That's Quantum. Spectre to me is like the other part of it, where if we just took now the Bond elements and left the gritty realism behind, take all the Bondish elements and a little bit of the humor. See, what's interesting again in Quantum. He has a boat chase, and he walks away with a scratched up face. Why? We don't know. But just anytime Craig did anything, his face was always scratched up. Here, he has this big fight with Dave Bautista, which should have left him looking like death.
Like Rocky
He's
Balboa.
Yeah, right. But he looks perfectly fine. He's not a scratch on his face. His hair is fine. Even his jacket is perfectly fine. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like this was sort of... They took away all that gritty realism of the first two Craigs, and now we have this. And now we're going to have like the Roger Moore humor and which again, see, that's a problem I have with this too.
If you, part of that thing I didn't read, but it's in that about that Sony leak, is that Craig was pushing for that. He wanted to be more like a Roger Moore type of, kind of more witty things going on.
See, and that to me is weird because I think if you wanted to bring more humor back into the series, I think they did it not so great. Like I remember we said in the last one, I said, when they were doing the car chase and, by the time the radio came on and then the little old guy in the Fiat in front of him and stuff and all these little funny things, I remember thinking this is about as much humor as I'm comfortable with, and any more I think would have been too much. I don't know. I kind of felt like if you put Daniel Craig and put him in Roger Moore-esque kind of comedy moments, it makes Craig look really weird. Like if you put Craig in Casino Royale, he looks perfect. He looks like he was born to play that part. Now you put him in Spectre with these kind of jokey parts, and it's like he looks a little weird. Like the part when he hits the button. Like I've heard people say, like the part when he hits the button and the radio comes on and Frank Sinatra comes on, and you hear him gonna go no, like.
Right.
No.
Like they were like, that's a little weird for Craig to see that. You know what I mean? Like he's not supposed to be in that kind of jokey, whatever. I mean, it wasn't unrealistic, so it didn't really bother me. I couldn't really say that shouldn't happen. It worked, but I don't know. It just seemed a little out of place for me to see Craig in that jokey kind of element.
Yeah, they said that Daniel Craig. One of the quotes said he had hoped to reclaim some of the old irony.
The old irony. Well, yeah, I mean, there's some of that, I guess. I know a lot of Bond fans want humor. Anyway, but some people want more humor in their Bond films. I'm not one of them necessarily. I'd like it a little more realistic and not necessarily jokey because I don't know. I mean, I want more suspense. I'd rather suspense than levity and humor. I don't mind moments of levity.
There's humor in the Connery Bonds. Like even in From Russia with Love, there's some good humor. There is some good humor, but it's not overly done. It's keeping within tone of the story.
Yeah, and it's usually Bond with Bond quips. Like it's usually like something ends and Bond makes a quip to kind of like release the tension or whatever, which works.
Thank you. Hey, you all right, buddy?
I'm fine.
Are you with our group?
No, ma'am, I'm with the economy tour.
I frankly didn't really understand the love affair that the filmmakers are having with Mendes. And I agree Skyfall was a really good Bond film, but I don't know why we totally handed the keys over to him. I mean, frankly, if you ask me, bring back Martin Campbell. I think
that would be
Campbell,
great. I mean, and he's had a couple box office, I wouldn't say flops, but he's not exactly burning them up.
Yeah, so, that's true. I mean, he's not right. He's not.
Let's
perfect
get him back
either,
to what he does best.
But again, I mean, I agree with you. I think Sam Mendes had one good Bond film in him, and they tried to bleed him for one more, and he didn't seem to have it left.
I'll give him this too. He's also saddled with a problematic script.
Right, very problematic script. What bugs me the most is I think this film feels like a cash-in of something that they have not yet earned. It's like they pull out Spectre, and they expect us to trip over ourselves. Oh my God, he revealed himself to be Blofeld, even though, one of the things I remember I went back in time and I was thinking to myself, if those Sony hacks didn't come out and nobody mentioned Blofeld, would I have genuinely been surprised when this guy named Oberhauser says, my name is really Blofeld? I tried to say to myself, would that have surprised me? But then the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a second. The name of the movie is Spectre. I know that the head bad guy is Blofeld. So how is that a reveal in any way, shape, or form? Why was that supposed to be a surprise?
I think
we know who that guy is.
It might have been better to call the movie something else if you want to go that route. And
let the next movie be called
Writings on the Wall. Writings on the Wall, right?
Yeah, there you go. Oof. Which won the Oscar for best original song, by the way.
Dude, we don't know what the hell we're talking about because they give an Oscar to that dude.
Somebody knows something I don't because I do not
get that. I want to mention
that.
really quickly. I picked up the. I have to because it's part of my tradition now. I picked up the CD single of that. But what is kind of unique to the CD is it has the instrumental version of that without the vocals, which is actually longer than what appears on the Spectre soundtrack. But I just wanted to mention that real quick.
If anything happens to me, 007, I need you to do something. Find a man called Marco Sciarra. Kill him. And don't miss the funeral.
And that brings me to another problem I've got with this. This is another film like Quantum of Solace where things are happening and the plot is progressing because people aren't talking. And there's so much lack of communication, things that would be resolved if somebody just opened their mouth and said, here's what's going on. You know what I mean? First of all, you got Bond in the beginning. He takes out Sciarra, blows up the building or whatever, gets ripped up by M for doing this, and Bond won't just say, well, this is the message I got, and this was a terrorist thing, and I went and I stopped it. Like, you'd think this would be pretty simple. But he won't say it. So now he's in trouble. So now he's rogue the entire rest of the movie. But then you fast forward to the end of the film where they meet each other up again. Bond and M meet up again at the safe house. And Bond, in 2 seconds, rattles off the whole plot. Hey, Bond, what have you got for me? Well, the recently deceased head of Spectre, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, blah, blah, blah. Speaking a mile a minute, as if you know this was edited in later and kind of jammed into that scene, and you can't. He's standing in the darkness where you can't see his mouth, so you know this was something that was done in post.
So, what do you have for me, 007?
The recently deceased head of Spectre, Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Then the scene where he meets Mr. White, and Mr. White, he's like, all right, something about, I see you have a daughter, you're protecting somebody, you must have a daughter. Okay, he figures this out. And he says, find her. And then L'American, something about L'American, and then he blows his brains out, right? Well, so now he has to go find her. He has to find out that L'American is actually a hotel, not a person. Then he goes to the hotel, spends all night there trying to figure out what the big secret is. Then he finally finds the room. Then he finds all this stuff, and then, if Mr. White just didn't put a gun in his mouth like for 5 more seconds, he could have explained these things. And it's like, why? And again, M leaves him the note, go find Sciarra and hang around for the funeral. White says, L'American, yada yada. Everybody leaves clues for other people. They don't explain anything. And that I find frustrating when you watch it again. It's like, these people know these things and they want him to find these things. So why are they leaving little clues for him to follow? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm sorry for your loss.
You mean my husband?
All too briefly.
You could almost back up to the opening sequence of Bond's motivation for being there at the Day of the Dead and all that stuff. Because when he kills that guy, I mean, supposedly what M's on about is like, okay, you find that guy, you kill him, and that's going to smoke out Blofeld. Honestly, if I am the head of this top secret organization, I'd probably skip the funeral, I don't know. They just call me crazy, but
right.
I think it's, maybe too much I'd be in the spotlight too much, But
exactly.
She's pretty much guaranteeing smoking out Blofeld by doing this. By doing this act of killing
right, exactly.
This guy. That doesn't guarantee anything, killing that guy. I'm sorry.
It really didn't. And frankly, again, like, is Blofeld a very sentimental guy?
From the get-go, you're on the structure. You're on wobbly ground.
Right, exactly. Like, is Blofeld a very sentimental man that he feels obligated to go to this guy's funeral? I don't think so.
Right.
It's weird. Like, Bond is in the torture chair. All of this, we're led to believe 4 films so that Blofeld can just torture and torment Bond, all to get him to this point, to put him in a torture chair so that we can drill holes in his face so that he'll lose his memory. And this is the big finale. I just don't find that to be... I would think if I was Blofeld, this would feel very lackluster. Like if I'm having so much fun torturing you, why end it here, this way? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But then he breaks out again. And of course, he shoots his way out in a scene that looks like you're playing GoldenEye 64 on the beginner level, just shoot him, and then shoot the tank, and then the whole entire place blows up, and then that literally feels like a video game, like the easy level of a video game, and then you get in a helicopter and fly off. and there's a cutscene or something.
Another
you know?
helicopter, by the way.
Yeah, but then they go back to London, and again, this is sort of weird. They go back to London. Bond finds M in the safe house in London. Why M needs to go to a safe house, I'm not sure. Because as far as I can tell, M just got fired from his job. He could be home watching TV. But he goes to a safe house as if he's in trouble. And then when they leave the safe house, and it's like, okay, we're going to go get C. I mean, I guess that's the plot. The idea that, well, C is in London, and we know who he is, so we have to take him down. Okay, that's why they go to London.
That character's so one-dimensional, too. It's just it's so boring, you know?
As soon as he walks in the door, you just go, villain.
He's like this smarmy, kind of one-dimensional nothingness, and it's just, ugh. That bores me. That subplot, I hate that subplot. Ugh.
I
know
too.
they kind of had
so
to give Q
boring.
something to do and blah, 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 but,
yeah.
You know.
I mean,
I kind of don't like the vibe of them all together, that the whole We Are Family thing. It just doesn't work. Like and like I said, like in Rogue Nation, it all sort of flows naturally, and it kind of works, and it makes logical sense. Here, it just doesn't, you know?
Well, in those movies, I think they're more meant to be field agents, and here they are not. And here they're going to pull them in because, and again, I think all the recurring characters, frankly, really get sort of a raw deal. Like, if you look at Moneypenny, the way she was introduced in Skyfall, and then how she sort of carries through Skyfall, where she's helping him, like, in the casino scenes and everything. Remember the scene when she shows up at his hotel when he's shaving, and he opens the door, and there she is kind of hanging on the door, like she's really kind of, she knows she's all that, and she's kind of very confident. Here, she's like this mousy little secretary, where her head turns around the corner a little bit, and she's like, "Hi, can I come in?" You know, I mean, like it was almost like her. I felt like her character did like a whole 180.
James, I can't.
I'll come back for you when it's all over.
No, I can't.
No, you can't stay here, or
I can't go back to this life, and I'm not going to ask you to change. This is who you are.
You're saying goodbye.
Yes. Take care.
That part where they leave the safe house and she says, "Bond, I can't do this anymore," or "James, I can't do this anymore," and she starts to leave.
Right, because the story needs her to.
Exactly, because the story needs her to get out of Bond's sight for 30 seconds. Yeah, to get captured. I mean, and that to me, that was really irritating. Again, talk about laziness. I'm supposed to be all excited when Bond is going to rescue her, and they're going to go off into the sunset, and he throws his gun off the bridge, and I've got something better to do, and I'm going to go live my life with this woman who dumped you 10 minutes ago. Like she was all set to leave you, so why should I be happy that the two end up together?
Finish it.
I'm wondering here, I mean, is it the right thing to let Blofeld go? Or does it make him look weak?
It does. It makes again, when Bond walks up to him and has the drop on him and nobody's there to stop it, he can do whatever he pleases, and then the idea, oh, I'm out of bullets and I got something better to do. I just felt like that was weak. And again, because like here Bond just escaped from the Spectre lair, where he blew up the entire place and probably murdered how many hundreds of people? Like how many people were in that building, right? I mean, we saw at least like 30, 40 guys just in that one room alone with all the screens. You know, so, I mean, we assume that these people all got blown up. Now he's got Blofeld, who is the cause of all this, and I'm going to let go. And it's like, all right, I don't know. And of course, like now the next time, if Blofeld's in the next one and he does something, the first thing you're going to think of is Bond could have killed him. And now he let him go, and now he's killed all these other people. And even if you're going to just have Bond put the gun down and say no, I thought the dropping the bullets and saying, oh, I'm out of bullets was just kind of, yeah.
Well, what do you know? No more bullets.
Like that, I mean, we said last time too that really great screenplay stuff that they've had in like Skyfall and Casino Royale's not here, so we get little clunky things like, oh, I'm out of bullets. You know, you could have done something a little better than that. I mean, again, like how many other movies have we seen? I mean, every Bond movie, he kills the bad guy. He always kills the bad guy. Today we're not, and it's almost like, but we really know why Bond isn't going to kill him. It's not just because he's a good guy or whatever, because we know Blofeld has to be around for the next one. We know Blofeld has to be a recurring character. That's the real reason.
It's the equivalent of Batman killing the Joker. It just, it's just not going to happen. At least not in, at least not for a movie or two.
this really what you want? Living in the shadows, hunting, being hunted, always alone.
I don't stop to think about it.
The best part of the film for me is probably
the end credits.
As I mentioned, what's that?
The end credits.
No, I mean, again, again, this is it's a tough film to review, like we said last time, because it's there's good things in it. I see them trying to do something, but then they just kind of either can't deliver or get too lazy to deliver. I mean, because frankly, again, I feel like they're trying to celebrate a victory in this film as if they're cashing in on everything that came before without doing very much in this film. And I kind of feel like you can't do that. You can't tell me that this is the culmination of 4 films when it's not. And you can't reintroduce Spectre without showing me Spectre doing something, giving me some Spectre plot. And you can't do a reveal of a guy named Blofeld just because he says his name is Blofeld, and I'm supposed to be like, wow, this is fantastic, when it's not, I don't see him doing very much. The tie-in as his brother doesn't make any sense, and there's no payoff. I don't see any rivalry. I don't see any bitterness. I don't see any history coming alive that I'm supposed to really care about. You can't just say it is and tell me that it is. But again, how do they know everything? Why does everybody know everything? And why is the goal of this organization is just to know everything? Again, they already know everything. There's nothing that they don't know. I haven't seen one thing. The villains are not surprised at all in this, except for the fact when Bond has a watch that blows up. That somehow ends up being a surprise. How that happens, I don't know. He can reach under, take off the watch and throw it. That part,
that's the first thing you're
catch.
gonna do. I mean, if I'm honestly, I don't know much about it, but if I'm like, if I'm a villain and I'm taking Bond prisoner, first thing I'm gonna do is take away everything.
Right?
I'm going to give him a rectal probe just to make sure that he doesn't have anything hidden on his person,
Oh, my God.
That's me. Well, hey, I'm a different kettle of fish. What can I say?
Dad? What are you doing here? I've got to finish this off once and for all.
I'm afraid you can't do that. I have to protect my son.
Dad, I'm fine.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about him.
What? Dr. Evil's not your son. I am.
You both are.
What?
I will never understand that. I think that is one of the worst decisions ever made, ever put to celluloid. And again, how it plays out is just so boring. I mean, like there isn't even any music that goes with that moment. Like there's no like dun dun, and there's nothing about how it even comes across. It's supposed to be like climactic or anything. It's just said, and and we're like, okay. Bond doesn't really even seem to be bothered much by it. He just whatever. There was no payoff. There was no nothing. There was nothing about it that was interesting. And again, then the climax in MI6 I thought was just horrible. Because again, they're back in London, and somebody says, "Where's James?" And Moneypenny goes, "I don't know, but I can take a good guess where he's probably." And she kind of looks over her shoulder at the MI6 building, and I'm like, "Why would they be over there?"
I know.
Why would you know that they're there, and why would they? I don't know. I didn't get that at all.
I'm going to give the film a break. I'm going to be a little nicer on the film. I'm going to give it a little bit of a break with a few hiccups in the first and second act. Overall, I'm going to say, you know what, that kind of works. And it's really the climax where I really where I'm like, oh, It's not that, like we were talking about before, it's not that the overall, like, A to Z disaster of Quantum.
So, what's interesting? I guess at the end of the day, I say to myself, does Spectre fail because they tried to do something and just failed and couldn't quite put it together? Or is it laziness? Because there are so many things about the script that scream to me of laziness. That to me is not very forgivable. If they try something like License to Kill, it's not my favorite because I feel like there's missteps and things that go wrong, but they're trying to do something. If it succeeds in my eyes, not exactly, but they're trying something. Here, I see them throwing some elements into the pot and stirring it, but I don't know if there's a lot of thought in it. I don't know if there is it seems like there's laziness. Laziness is unexcusable. If you try it and it doesn't work, I'll give you credit for trying something. But I just feel like in this case, and again, it could be the Sony hacks, it could be the rewrites, it could have been a scramble. Maybe that was a big part of the problem. At the end of the day, we can't review what might have been, and you can't review who did what. At the end of the day, you can only review what's on that screen, and what ends up on the screen again is it's the mismatched story plots that don't work, storylines that don't make a lot of sense, and motivations that are almost non-existent. Right?
Maybe the best thing would have been to do. I mean, it might have been disastrous financially for them, whatever. But maybe just to hold production and just until they get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think money is the motivation here. If there's one motivation for the script, it's money. So that's our final solution there.
Right. That's pretty much it.
Daddy wasn't there.
Yeah, on that note, I think we've pretty much said everything to be said about Spectre.
Wow,
24th.
we kicked that down the road there, and then some.
Yeah, well, it's funny.
I feel like it's like Spectre was like that. Now go home and get your shine box guy, and we just kicked it out of him.
Yeah. It was. It's funny. I had people say to me after when we did our first review, again, because we said that we had recorded it once. It was really, really negative, so we did it again to try to be a little more even-handed. And I had people say to me, like, "Wow, you shredded that movie. So if your original one was worse, I can't even imagine how bad that was."
When I was first baptized, when I was criticized, when I was ostracized, when I was jazzercised, steaking kidney pies, when I was modernized, when I was circumcised, Daddy wasn't there.